Hey everybody, I wanted to try something different, so instead of doing the live video, I decided I would do just a regular video. That way I didn't have to feel nervous about people looking in and, saying hi and me having to respond and all that. This isn't going to be a personal one. I'm actually starting something new just to have something to do, occupy my time a little bit. As many of you know, I'm lacto-ovo-vegetarian, not the preachy kind. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. But I'm leaning toward becoming vegan, and along the way, I'm going to be discovering new products. I'm going to be using some of these new products in ways that would be familiar to me, like in baking, in making macaroni and cheese, put the cheese in quotes. So I will be reviewing things based on taste, texture, cooking, allergens, and price. So based on those 5 criteria, my first product that I wanted to review is actually the Silk Protein Nutmilk. And that's this product right here. Now, the camera may actually be reversing what it's showing, but you can see the picture on the box. You can see it's showing almonds and cashews, and it says it also has some pea protein as well, protein from peas. So, as far as taste goes, most people want to know, well, what is it like in relation to cow milk? Regular dairy cow milk. I was very surprised because most vegetable-based milks, they're a little odd in their consistency and their flavor, and Silk in particular. I've not been a huge fan of Silk. Their soy milk is not my favorite. This, the protein nut milk with the almond and cashew, actually is amazing. For flavor, just for regular use of if you were going to drink it like you were drinking dairy milk, out of 5 stars, this gets a 5. It's that good. In terms of texture, it also gets a 5 for raw. However, getting into the third thing in terms of cooking with it, I ran into something a little strange. When I make my bread, what I do is I heat up the 1.25 cups of fluid plus the honey that I'm using in the microwave. I pull it out of the fridge, throw it in the microwave for 1 minute, and it brings it to pretty much exactly 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And then while I'm pulling my flours out of the freezer, that gives it just a little bit of time to cool just slightly because you don't want to kill the yeast. Normally, I use a soy milk, the Kroger organic plain soy milk, because that's one of the better ones, and I'll review that eventually as well. But I had this protein nut milk that I got because I had a rebate, and I think I had a coupon, and it was on sale. I always try to get things at the best price that I can. So I popped it in the microwave, pulled it out, stirred it, and it seemed a little thicker than what I was expecting, but I thought, well, maybe it's just me or whatever. Threw the first part of the bread ingredients into it, and it was stiffer than what I expected. The bread that I make, you put in 2 cups of the dry ingredients, and then you let it rise for an hour. Then you throw in the other 2 cups, knead it for 10 minutes, let it rise for an hour, flop it out into whatever you're going to bake it in, let it rise again for 45 minutes, and then you bake it. Well, all right, so what I probably should have done was add a little bit of water, and I actually did that the next time I made bread with it. But the first time, I didn't realize when you heat this up, it thickens a little bit. Shouldn't be too much of a surprise. We're all familiar. If you do any cooking at all, you're all familiar with the idea of if you add some starches to something, whether it's cornstarch, whether it's a tablespoon of flour to some soup or whatever, as you heat it, it will thicken. Well, the soy protein nut milk actually thickened And it wasn't that it was brought up to a boil. This was only brought up to, like I say, about 115 degrees Fahrenheit. So for regular cooking purposes, for most things, you probably won't notice any major issue. But if you were going to be doing something like making hot cocoa according to a recipe that normally called for milk, and you use this, it's going to be thicker. So you would need to decide how you want to handle the consistency with that. So for cooking, I will give this a 4-star rating, and in terms of the consistency when cooked, like I say, raw it's 5 stars, but when cooked I would say 4, just because you kind of have to be aware of what's going on. In terms of allergens, interestingly, this does not have any soy in it at all. So if you have a soy allergy, which a few people do, then this product might be for you. It also has no dairy products in it at all. So if you have an issue with casein, as some people do, this may be for you. On a side note, I found out my issue that I have with dairy isn't lactose, because I digest lactose just fine. Come to find out there's 2 kinds of casein. There's casein 1 and casein 2. Sheep and goats all make only casein 1, which is why people don't tend to have a problem with their milk. Cows, as they were selecting for better and better milk production, they accidentally selected for cows produce both kinds of casein. They accidentally selected for cows that are heavier in the casein 2, and that particular protein some people have a little bit of a problem with. So anyway, with the Silk Protein Nut Milk, you don't have to worry about that. For anyone who has wheat sensitivities, my sister, for instance, recently developed celiac. Recent research is showing that may actually, for some people, be an acquired condition, and in her case, it clearly was, possibly because of an infection. It was from a specific virus or bacteria. I forget exactly which one it was, but you could Google that and find out. I don't have any problem with that, but this has no wheat products in it. So the only allergens that it has the 2 legumes of of the cashew and the pea. So if you have any kind of bean type of allergy, or specifically to peas or cashews, then you could have an issue with this. And then it has the 1 tree nut, which is an almond, which you may or may not know is very closely related to the peaches and plums. The pit that you see in peaches and plums, the seed of that, if you were to crack open the hard inner thing, you would see the tender part inside looks a lot like an almond. And it's because basically it is. Only in those fruits, it has a bit of arsenic in it. So that's why you don't see people eating the peach pit soft part. Anyway, so the final thing then comes down to price. Silk can tend to be a little pricey. It's kind of hard to compare it to dairy milk, because dairy milk is subsidized. In other words, the federal government pays various fees that come out of the general tax fund to help prop up the price of dairy, so that dairy farmers and people who supply dairy farmers with the fodder for their cattle, the silage, which would be the corn and soybeans and whatever else. There are government-paid props in place in our economy that artificially lower the cost of dairy products. Not so for farmers who grow a lot of other things, including almonds and cashews and peas. We don't tend to have supporting subsidies for those. So various vegetable milks can tend to be a little bit more expensive. That said, Silk frequently will put out coupons in your newspapers. If you are used to going to particular grocery stores, I'm used to going to Kroger, I typically will get paper coupons, and occasionally there will be electronic coupons. Sometimes with the different rebate programs, whether it's Ibotta, Checkout 51, MobiSave, there are probably some other ones out there. Ibotta is the one that I typically use the most. That's IBOTTA. You can typically find rebates on silk for anywhere from $1, $1.25, $1.50. Coupons are typically anywhere from 75 cents to $1. Sometimes you'll have an odd amount. It'll be like 80 cents off. But anyway, in this case, I actually got this for about $1.80 with the coupons and rebates that I had and it being on sale. And that's for a half gallon. So for nut milk, that's actually pretty good. Typically for my Kroger soy milk, I wait until it goes on sale, and usually I'm paying around $2.50, sometimes $2.40 for that, depending on the sale price. So in comparison, this wasn't too bad. So it's the kind of thing where if you're on a budget, but you're trying to improve the quality of the food that you're getting, this would be something that you should add. It only has 2 grams of sugar per serving and 10 grams of protein. So that's very, very good. In terms of the fat, it has, let's see, looks like it has 8 grams of fat. So it's comparable to dairy milk nutrition-wise. It has vitamin content that's a little bit different, but they have added calcium to it to make it comparable to dairy milk, and they've added vitamin D, and the vitamin D is from vegetarian suitable sources. In case you don't know, there are 3 kinds of D. There's D1, D2, and D3. D1 is always from a vegetable source, and it's the reason that it's D1, D2, D3 is because your body has to do things to it. D3 is the bioavailable form. That always comes from animal sources, and I hate to break it to you, but in dairy milk, the D3, it's not natural to the milk. They add it, and it actually comes from the brain and spinal cord of the cattle that have been slaughtered for food. So when you're drinking dairy milk, you're drinking basically also something that's been added from the brains and spinal cords of cattle. D2 is a trickier one because it can be from animal or vegetable sources, but it's typically from vegetable sources. And in that case, whereas D1 actually has to go through 2 metabolic processes to become the bioavailable form that we use, D3, D2 only has to go through 1. For instance, if you go out and sit in sunlight and you have D2 in your system and it's in your blood, as your skin is being exposed to the sunlight, some of the D2 is being converted into D3. D1 has to undergo an enzymatic process and then a photoconversion process. So this has vitamin D added to it, and it is vitamin D2 from vegetable sources. So this is suitable for not only vegetarians but for vegans as well, and I highly recommend it. So, Silk Protein Nut Milk. Get you some. You won't regret it.